which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. Let's get this moving.
Okay, we received in our packet a correction of the minutes for the 18th. And are there any comments?
Madam Chair, can we do roll call, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. Please go ahead.
Budget Committee Member George Fisher.
Here.
Budget Committee Member Laura Fisher.
Here.
Budget Committee Member Lance Masters.
Yes.
Budget Committee Member Tiffany Pruitt.
Here.
Budget Committee Member Tom Cranwood.
Here.
Budget Committee Member Sandra Kelly.
Here.
Budget Committee Member Kevin Benson.
Here.
Budget Committee Member Eva Zerke.
She's on her way. She's on her way.
Budget Committee Member Darlene Solinger.
Here.
Budget Committee Member Shauna Hazel.
Present.
Budget Committee Member Karen Seid.
Here.
Budget Committee Member Guy Maheen.
Here.
Budget Committee Member Bobby Walker.
Present.
Budget Committee Member Don Heath.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll get to the minutes on the 18th. Did everybody have a chance to review the corrections? And Darlene?
Page 2, line 6 was still not correct. That's where Mary Ann had stated that it was a city policy to take the use of city property to be out of streets.
And it should say,
It was right after UW Price explained that money is for rent of the building and it goes to general fund. And then Ann stated that was a city policy.
So we should put in that as city policy.
That's what's on the tape.
and what line was that? I'm sorry.
Line 6,
Oh.
page 2.
Okay. So, we should correct that, if that's all right with you. Well, and add that. Should we accept them with that change, that one change? George?
Oh, just on the first page, my name's actually George, not Gorge.
We're at door.
Huh?
We're at door.
Gorge,
Where's Gorge?
Gorge Fisher.
Name complete.
Which one do you want to say?
And then on page 3, down, it says where, it said the beginning balance didn't come to the diffusion of so. What's fruition?
Fruition.
Fruition?
Fruition.
Oh, okay. All right, so that's correct. All right. Do I have anything else? I didn't have anything else.
With those two corrections, could I please receive a motion to accept the minutes from the 18th?
I move to accept the minutes with the two corrections.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
One abstain, because I was not here.
I'm going to abstain as well.
Okay. Accepted with 2 abstentions, Lance Masters and Karen Sykes. And the minutes for the last meeting, are not done? Okay. And also, before we get started with our agenda, we had requested bank statements. Did you get those?
I have those, I didn't get them in the packet, I'm sorry. I can get those for you.
Do you want to get them during our break, when we have our break?
I'll be happy to.
Okay, that would be nice. And also, Kevin brought up, it's in the auditor's report that was circulated to everybody. Kevin brought up a point about the balances going down, even though the credits had outweighed the debits in every case. And we were wondering if you had an answer why that was. Why are the balances going down if we're running in a positive every year? Well, I think unless we have some kind of an explanation, it really doesn't make sense that we would have less beginning balance each year.
But that's what's bringing the budget
And we need to get some kind of an explanation from that, if it's from the auditor or whoever it's from. And that was on these graphs, right, Kevin?
On everyone, actually. It's part of the auditor's, March 21st report. And at the top of each page, there's a graph that shows revenues, expenditures, net revenue, and then the fund balance, and there's no correlation between revenue, expenditures, and the following fund balance.
It keeps going, the fund balance keeps going down, but I guess that's not the case in every case, but like in streets and such,
The general fund is one that has a positive balance every year, but it's still, the beginning balance continues to decline and decline and decline in the actual numbers.
and the actual numbers aren't on here though, are these?
Sure.
Are they?
Yeah, those are the actual.
Okay.
So if you look at, let's see what's the big.
It's water. Does everybody know what we're looking at? It's the auditor's supplement. And right now, we're on the second to the last page, looking at the general fund.
So, for example, general fund 2006 shows a fund balance at the end of the year of $251,919. 2007 shows net revenue of $67,000, but the ending balance is $197,000, which is less than the 251. And then the next year it shows 197,000 ending balance, 105,000 positive cash flow, and then a final balance of 221,000, which is not 105,000 more than 197.
The only thing I can think is that these fund balances are being rolled over for a revenue at the beginning.
I guess that's possible.
I will contact the auditor tomorrow and have him
Thank you.
explain it to me and bring it back to you on Friday.
Okay, since we have declining fund balances, and when you look at these sheets, we have more revenues than we have expenditures. But if those funds are being carried over as a revenue at the beginning of the next year, I don't know if those are new revenues or revenues including the fund balance. Mary Ann, that would be the question. Whether those were new revenues, the top column, or whether those are revenues including the fund balance from the previous year.
The beginning balance.
The beginning balance, right, well,
Okay.
it says fund balance, so
Right.
whatever you do with that fund balance, if that went into,
Think about the beginning balance.
Is the beginning balance.
mhm,
It is listed in revenue.
Yes.
so that would probably be, account for that. So I don't think it's necessary, I think we figured it out. You agree?
Right.
Yeah, it makes more sense.
Okay.
Okay, are there any other topics that anybody from the budget committee would like to bring up before we start? discussion of the funds. Charlene?
I had a question, I was looking back through the street department, page 11. Under operations personnel expense, city administrator is there for $3,500, but I would assume that it would be Department 21, but it says Department 5. Is that a mistake, or is?
Yes, that's where it always has been. Department.
So it's Fund 3, Department 5,
Operation.
under street?
There is no Department 21 in street department.
So then that brings my other question is, on this page that we were given that has all the funds with the departments underneath it, under that Department 5 under street, it says operations, it has in parentheses, RP, MS, CO, IF, CT, what is that?
Not sure. Not sure. It's revenue.
Oh,
personnel.
yeah, it's right, yeah, it's just this is my cheat sheet, so I can figure out where I am in the budget. It's revenue, personnel, material and services, capital outlay, interfund, and contingency. I should have, when I originally did this, I wasn't meant for circulation, it was just to help me. So I gave it to everybody, but that,
Under that
yeah.
emergency services there, Fund 5, it says Department 21 administration. So wouldn't you think that that city administrator expense would be under Department 21?
In what fund?
in streets, where,
Well, it's in there under streets, so wouldn't it be an
No.
administration cost?
what fund are we talking about?
Streets.
Streets. Okay.
There's
What
the
page was that on,
administrative
Arlene? I'm
balance, page 11, under personnel expense.
It's actually multiple. It's in Fund 1 as well, in the general fund. And in
Yeah, I've seen it in the general fund too, but, is it supposed to be like that?
planning has a.
That's the way it's been. The reason is it's because we.
It seems like there should be some consistency.
We
Let's
don't
If
do
we're gonna
it.
have Fund 21 is gonna be all of the administration, and all of the administration should.
That's why we
Yeah,
have it.
that's 21.
Okay, well, go ahead. Here, go ahead and answer.
Is there a practical reason why that's not being done?
Practical reason is that's the way it's been done as far as I can go back. The reason that I would think that it's not in Fund 21 is that the city administrator is the only admin part that works or supports the street as far as any labor costs upstairs. In the other utilities, we do billing, we answer phone calls, we do all of that. We do answer phone calls for street, but not as many as the other departments. So I can only guess that rather than create a whole department for one person, it's, that's where they put it. Because that's what you'd be creating, is a department for one person. Because none of the admin staff is in the street fund.
Is that true also with planning and such? Like Kevin said, it's in planning and another
General fund.
And then the general fund as well, which I'm just curious how if someone wanted to look at the administration and you filtered Fund 21 and thought that that was the administration costs, then there's all these other little ones scattered out throughout that aren't actually part of Fund 21. And if Fund 21's purpose is to be the administration expenses sent out to each different department, then it should include all the expenses. I mean, that's just-
Well, I think the basic answer is it was historical, it's been going on that way. If you want us to change the coding, we'll look at changing the coding.
If there's, I'm not saying to change it, I'm trying to get a dialogue going as to if there's any advantage to having this. I can't see any advantage, but maybe there is, I don't know.
other than confusing the issue?
It's more historical than
Okay.
I mean,
What-
It's
do you
the best
think
answer I
it's a
could
legacy- Is
give.
it a legacy that should continue, or should we do away with it?
Well, I think in terms of if you want, in order to make it easier to identify administration, it's probably better to identify it as administration.
I believe that too.
I would agree.
Yes, Kevin, please.
So in the, Marianne, just for my information, in the streets, if that city administrator cost was allocated to Fund 21, why would you need a whole separate fund just for that?
It's not a separate fund, I apologize, it's a separate department
No, you said
within that fund.
Yeah, you said,
A separate department within Fund 21?
No, within Fund 3. It would become Department 21, which is the admin part of a fund.
Okay, and is that what you do in all the other funds though?
When it involves the admin staff. And again, for one person, you're creating a whole department. That's fine, I can do that. It's just historically, that's not the way it has been done, so I just kept one whole.
it's not a new department, you
No,
just
it's
identify
just-
it differently.
Yeah, but,
Yeah.
correct, I'm not creating a fund, I'm just identifying it differently as a department within that fund, just like all the other ones.
Anyway, I think it's,
And I can do that.
I think that's fine.
Just for clarity, so then we're gonna take the ones in Fund 1 as well? Fund 1, Department 1, City
No.
Administrator, those are gonna go to Department 21 as well?
Where are the divisions of how they're,
Well, that's kind of where I'm trying to get to,
Right.
is how, if these are separated out, are they included in the percentages that are sent out to each department, or are these separate?
No, they're included in the percentages.
so what departments, if you had to name everything that involved the administration, what departments would you name?
Fund 5, 21, 31, 41, and 51, it is on your agenda. Now,
Yes, Kevin.
So, again, just for clarity, is there a problem, there's no problem with all of the administrative costs being associated with Department 21?
Right.
And is that a consensus of this group, or Marianne has it?
Okay, Mary
So to clarify, in the general fund, you would want to move the administration from the administration to Department 21 and the planning administration to Department 21, and not keep planning separate? Is that how I'm understanding it?
I'm trying to, that's what I'm trying to get to.
Well, yeah.
But my understanding is Department 21 exists for administrative costs, right? That's the purpose of that department.
It exists in the utility funds and Fund 5, yes,
Okay.
yes.
So, I guess I don't see how there's any advantage to not having all administrative costs.
In Department
associated
21.
with the department. I mean, if there is an advantage, I just don't know it. And I thought maybe if someone else,
No, I don't know of any advantage.
So each one of these departments, as I understand it, has their own fund created in order to handle their share of the administration.
Their own
costs.
department.
Their own department.
Yeah, it's not a fund, it's a department.
So instead of going, I guess what I was trying to get to was, instead of going through each one of these again, I would suggest that we had a consensus to associate all administrative expenses with Department 21.
Madam Chair,
Bobby.
do I understand it, is you're just looking for an easier method to track the admin costs, rather than looking at one or two different
A
departments?
uniform method.
You could look at 21, and it'd be all encompassing through the other, okay, all right.
Now, how many other funds are affected besides the one? Precisely. Do you know, Mary
It
Ann?
would just be the general fund is the only one that would be affected, Madam Chair.
Okay. And the,
All administrative expenses.
right. make a motion and we can
I guess we can do it.
That's
we can
motion.
proceed?
I make a motion that, all administrative expenses for the entire budget are associated with Department 21.
Second. Everybody,
Discussion.
question, discussion? Laura?
Go ahead. Well, I just, if it's Department 2 inside of Fund 1, like Mary Ann was saying, for planning, and then general fund, then they'll be put together and you won't have a way to.
I'm gonna have to ask you to step outside, Nancy.
Two of them say 21, so when they're.
I'm sorry.
Administrative costs.
But it's too difficult
But
to
they
hear.
did Department 2, which this one is 1-1, and it was at 121. Okay, I think I can.
Okay. Any more discussion, Shauna?
Mary Ann, are there any cons to doing this? Like, with your knowledge, to making this change?
No, other than it all keeps it in Department 21, but,
Bobby?
A question for Mary Ann, Manager. Will this change the balances of any, will we have to go back and make adjustments through any other?
no, all I'm doing is creating a department in the general fund, Department 21. And it is my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you would want the planning personnel expenses and the general, the number 1 personnel expenses to be combined in the general fund. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I-
I mean, that's what you're stating.
Okay.
Okay, my understanding is that they'll just stay in the departments that they're in, but they'll be separated out to be admin. I mean, whatever's in the general fund is gonna stay in the general fund under 21, and whatever's under planning is gonna stay under planning under 21.
So you want me to create a fund, a Department 21 in Fund 1 that encompasses the whole general fund? It's how, I have to combine the planning and the general. The planning and, on page 2 and page 4. Because the general fund is a fund.
But there's departments within.
Right, and I'm creating a Department 21 within a fund.
Within which fund?
General fund, which is Fund 1.
Okay, so you said everything in 21, in Fund 1 is gonna be, so we're
Correct.
gonna be able to see
So
specifically what goes towards planning,
planning-
and what goes towards general fund.
Planning will be combined with the administration of Fund 1.
Well, I don't see why they still can't be separate, and
Well,
can they?
you'd have to separate, you'd have to create a new fund for planning if you wanted to have a
Like a
separate
department.
department. You would need a new fund for planning.
Do we
It couldn't
want
be part of
to?
the general fund and have a separate department fund. Isn't that right, Mary Ann? You would have to create a new fund for
In-
planning if you wanted to have those expenses separated out.
Would it be enough if we went back through all the other funds and coded all administration 21 for consistency?
That's what we're trying to get to, but then we're gonna have planning is gonna be the only inconsistency. And if we're trying for consistency, then
Are you changing your motion, Kevin?
we're still having discussion.
Okay. Darlene?
I've noticed in other, budget committees, they color code different things in here. And so we could color code through the general fund administrative costs. We could color code through the whole budget to make it. I don't understand why if we have Fund 21 or Department 21 in the rest of the funds, why wouldn't we just change that Department 2 in Fund 1 says city administrator? Why wouldn't it just say 21 and we would know what those administrative costs were and then total up? We just have to add another line item that says administrative total
No,
into planning?
because you can only have, in Fund 1, you can only have one Department 21, right?
Yes.
For each line item. So,
So we can't separate them out. 'cause it's
exactly,
already in Fund
that's why
one.
planning is in a different department.
So could we color code them in so that we could see it? To know
We don't
what
have a
it's
color
supposed to-
printer. A copier, excuse me.
You could create a different fund for planning, and that would.
Get rid of all the
I
other
don't know how much work
funds?
that is, or whether it's. Mary Ann.
Planning's revenue source comes from the general fund. So to create a separate fund, you have to have a revenue source and expenditure source. Just keep that in mind. It comes from the general fund.
These just go to 21.
Roads and street departments.
Administration.
Right.
We could do the street,
One.
we could do
Because
the.
you're not staying consistent with what I want.
Well, the other funds are 20.
Now they're 21.
No.
It's,
Well, maybe, I'll withdraw my motion. Maybe we'll tackle this next year. I don't wanna get bogged down
so
with
you're
this.
saying 121?
Well, my second.
Okay, then we'll move on.
In other words, where we administrate, even inside the
I agree with that.
work.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Darlene.
could we make the change in the street department though?
We add that to 21, Rich?
Yeah,
Under personnel expense
I think so.
I don't,
in the street department?
just for discussion, I think the piecemeal approach is how we got to where we're at. If we're gonna change it, let's change it. If we don't have time to do it, then let's not do it. I don't see any advantage to doing one and not the other. That's just my opinion.
yeah, I think it's doable, and I like the idea of it in terms of consistency and kind of, it's more transparent. You know, could you give us a couple days, like till Friday, to work through this?
I think that we could come back to that. I think it's something that we'd like to have done.
Sure.
So it's more readable, it's
I-
fairly confusing when you look at everything.
Mary and I just need some time to talk about it, to make sure it will make it across the board as consistent as possible.
Okay, Darlene?
I don't see it as an immediate issue. We probably have more higher priority things we're going to need staff working on before June 30th, but it might be something that we continue after budget process. Maybe we work through it during the summer and just maybe, I see other things in here that I'd like to change on the format too of the budget, so maybe it's something we do after budget.
Kevin? Okay. I'd like to take a consensus that we can put this on hold until we have more time to examine both this and other issues in the format of the budget. And we can do that after the budget has been approved and we convene throughout the year. Kevin?
I would suggest that we just go with staff's recommendation, which was if they have time to get through it, they'll get through it, and if they don't, they won't.
Okay.
And I'm absolutely fine with that, and they're gonna be the judge of whether they have the time to do it or not.
Okay. But it would not be our top priority, I would say. So shall we get back to the general fund? We were in the middle of that when we changed. I think that there were some questions about, I definitely had some questions about flow pass-through money, both the engineering estimates and the planning fees for 140 and 150. That's why, were you under the impression that that had been approved? I just didn't know what that
No.
meant off to the side.
No, all I did, because there was some confusion about the $50,000, is I put it back to the way it was. I did take out $15,000 for the city planner, so that you can see that $15,000. And Rich and I had discussed this, and we both agreed that we should put it back the way it is, and then you move forward. Because at one point, Mr. Haight said 40,000 last meeting, and but then it was some discussion on if you took the last 5 years, what it was going to be. So Rich and I had decided that we just need to start right now with your planning fees and your questions.
Kevin?
You say that you put the city planner in for 15,000, which line item is that?
Where is this?
Page 4,
So page 4,
we're on expenditures.
About the sixth line up from the bottom.
Okay, I see, thank you.
okay, so you'll notice that the planning, engineering pass-through plus the city planner plus the deposits, the construction deposits equal the 290 that are on the revenue on page 1.
But you,
I have a question about that. Do you have a construction project for revenue line item? If you're including that refund construction deposits, is that in the revenue portion?
That's part of the planning fees and planning engineering estimate.
It doesn't come.
Well, if it is, then why is it listed separately as an expenditure when, you know, because
Mr. Carson has this.
the way I have it figured, pass-through should pass through.
Well, it's just that it doesn't come in as a refund. But there is a refund, and we wanted just to show it. It comes in those two categories. So it's a little hard to create a revenue,
Why wouldn't it be a pass-through also?
well, it's a pass back.
Or a pass-back? Well, where'd it come from to begin with?
It came out of the original revenues, planning fees, pass-through, planning engineering estimates, pass-through. It's in that number, except that it's money, we collect money as like a deposit against time and materials, and whatever money is not expended, we give back to the applicant, and that's what the refund is.
Well, then
So
it
it
would-
comes through, it's a pass-through, it goes over to expenditures, but we have to recognize and show that it's going back to them.
Kevin?
I believe Marianne explained that 50,000 had been added to the beginning balance,
Well,
right?
Yeah, Rich has an,
yeah, Mary and I
Roll over into it.
spent quite a bit of time to the point where it was hurting my head talking about it, but at the end of the day, what I figured out was that the only thing that the beginning balance has in common with the refund is the number is the same. Other than that, they have nothing to do together. They're just both $50,000, like, you know, if they both would have been 30,000 or 10,000, people would have jumped to the assumption it's the same number. It's not. They're totally different.
Kevin?
It's not a beginning balance, it's coming through the engineering and the planning applicant's money.
Well, then that needs to be listed, I think, as an offset that's the same.
What do you-
Because you have contract services planning, contract servicing engineer,
Right.
and contract services for engineer go from $150,000 to $100,000. So that, no doubt, is where that extra $50,000
Well,
is.
Where does it say that?
Well, on page 1 and page 4, it's coming out the other end, $50,000 short.
Original budget.
okay, you see your 290 up here.
Huh.
Okay, that 290.
Kevin?
She's saying that this 100 does not equal that 150 because the 50's up there.
But it's these three.
Did you have something to say?
All right.
Rich?
If you go, okay, on the revenue side, if you take both items, 140 and 150, it equals 290. If you go to page 4 and you look at the refund, the 15,000, the 125, and the 100, that equals 290. So the revenues and the expenditures balance.
Right, but a pass-through should be a pass-through, and that should be listed as a revenue that might be a deposit. If you're counting that as a pass-through, engineering, it's not.
So do you want to say refund planning fees pass-through?
$50,000
You want to call it
pass-through.
pass-through?
Right, I think that a pass-through should be a pass-through.
That's
You should be
fine.
able to locate it as an expenditure in the
Yeah.
same amount.
If you want to add the words pass-through, then fine.
What?
Okay,
I don't know.
so the way this was explained, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that the $50,000 that's shown for refund planning fees
Mhm.
is money that we've already received.
Yes.
She needed to book somehow.
Right.
And at the end of the year, the money gets rolled over into the beginning balance.
Or it goes back to, the idea is to get as close an estimate so that it would, we can't be precise, but this is money that goes back to the applicant. It doesn't roll over.
But she was saying that she has about $13,000.
17,200.
$17,000 in actual cash that
Mhm.
needs to be refunded,
Mhm.
which is part of this beginning balance. So we have a liability that we need to
Exactly.
address. But the revenue for that liability is the beginning balance, right?
I will be taking that out of the beginning balance at the end of June.
Which means the pass-through does not pass through, and we have a missing $50,000 that has been budgeted for, that's supposed to be pass-through money.
But theoretically, it's passed back money. It isn't passing through. It's not, you know, 50,000 is not meant to be a beginning balance. The idea is,
I understand
and
that.
we're only and again, this is an estimate. Even the revenues on this are not going to be exact. We're just trying to say, so much money is going to come in, so much money is going to be expended on contract services, so much money is going to go back to the applicant, and it all balances. And it could go up or down, and, you know, but this is as close as we're going to be able to get.
Well, I don't agree with that, and I also don't agree that it shows it very good. But that's my opinion. Tiffany?
So on the revenue page, can't we take the $50,000 out of the planning engineer estimates and make a new line item for construction deposits? I mean, it would just make it look more clean, because I mean, it just,
The pass-through money should be the same amount of
Yeah.
expenditures
That's-
as it
that's
is
fine.
deposits.
If new terminology makes it clear, that's fine.
Well, pass-through money, to me, I expect it coming out the other end in the same amount that it went in. And it looks to me like there's $50,000 that has been absorbed up in this proposed budget that started out as a pass-through revenue.
So what would you like to call it?
What are you calling it for the debit?
yeah, construction deposits.
They should match.
Okay.
And then,
Tiffany?
and then to make it match again, out of the 140,000, we should have another line that's specifically for planning for city, so that it's consistent too.
Well, we do there, contract service
We
planning.
have one,
city.
we have a lump sum for planning fees on revenues, and then they break it out into contract service planning and then planning city up above for $15,000 here. Right here,
Yeah.
so these two together add equal 140,
Mhm.
but here they make it one line.
Right. Okay. So, and that is what the committee decided on, unless there's some kind, Laura, did you have something to say?
I thought that we had, I was just scratching my head and wondered, I thought we had, made a motion for 40,000?
Yes, that's what I said that Dawn had done, but I wanted to show you the correlation, so it was 290, 290. Because you're gonna need to adjust the revenues along with the expenditures. So I just went back to the beginning so we could do that, but I will change it to the 40/40 if that is still the budget committee's wish.
So, it would be $100,000 for planning engineering estimates, and $50,000 for construction deposits, and planning pass-through, $125,000.
Is my understanding,
You have to budget now for that $15,000 for contract service planning city, because that's not gonna be a pass-through. That's going to be money taken out of the city somewhere.
yes, and I have it as an expenditure separately.
Where is that? This
On,
is,
on page 4, there's contracted service planning, city.
right, $15,000.
$15,000.
I saw that.
Yes.
Okay.
But, okay.
Okay, but that brings up a question. Tiffany?
Yeah, that brings up a question, because last week, that was 15,000 in addition to the 40,000 that we said was the pass-through, because last week it was 140 on one page and 155 on the other. So that wasn't part of that 15,000 wasn't, but now it is.
Right, and that isn't pass-through money. We're not going to receive money for that.
Tell me what you'd like the pass-through to be.
I want the pass-through to be that's reflected as pass-through to be exactly that, pass-through.
Okay. And
Which means we're budgeting in case this money comes in, we're budgeting it to go out.
okay, and that number, last budget meeting was 40,000, is that still correct?
On the pass-through?
Yes.
Okay.
Talked about.
So you wanted 40,000 planning fees and 40,000 engineering estimates, is that correct?
That's what I said, yeah.
And 40,000 to pass through, right. Okay, now on contract service engineering, were we leaving it at $100,000? We lowered it as well, didn't we? To
If you're gonna
40,000
lower the-
Also?
Do them both at 40.
If you're gonna lower the revenue, you need to lower the expenditures.
Okay, so,
So I'll put those both at 40,000 for the pass-through.
okay,
Is that correct?
correct. I believe that's correct. Now, is what this does, okay, and then did you want to leave the construction deposits at 50,000, or how do you want to work that? Because that's not entirely pass-through. Some of that you have on hand. Don?
Marion, you said we had an actual 13,000 that you know is going to be returned,
17,200 at this time
that you
is
know
my balance,
that
yes.
has to go back.
And I recommend that you change the 50,000 to 17,200. That reflects
Exactly,
what I have.
that's what I would like to see. Then you can look at it and you
Now,
know.
is there
what-
a chance that you will get more deposits this next year that you will have to return in the same year?
It is possible with the two projects that are going on.
So 17, if we
So-
budget an expenditure of 17.2, it may not be enough, so I
Correct.
think we need to
Correct, there are
increase
two
that.
projects, and Rich knows more about those two projects than I do. Do you expect some deposits coming in? Because we
Yeah.
haven't even started the construction phase.
Kevin?
Well, yeah, but it's next year, so yeah, both projects could go. I mean, I'd feel more comfortable leaving it at
The
50,
50?
just
Okay,
because it's,
I'm not
It's a
opposed
better
to that
number.
either, we don't really know. Kevin?
If we budgeted 50 on the revenue side and 67.2 on the expense side, right, because we have the $17,000 liability right now that we're not addressing. If we put 50 and 50, we're still not addressing the $17,000 actual liability we have.
well, I'm looking at the 50,
The
the
50.
17 being inside of the
The
50.
And
In other
I'm
words-
saying we already have the 17.
Right, and I'm saying
And
that
it's a
this,
liability that we're not addressing by saying 50/50. That's the same as if we didn't have the $17,000 liability having it not balanced.
well,
That's true.
It's, the 17,000 is gonna come out of the beginning balance basically, which is where it is right now.
And that'll leave
By
50,
having it not balanced,
so we
right?
take 17 out of the
and
deposit.
that'll leave 50 to be the pass-through amount.
I mean, 17 goes in the beginning balance
Tiffany?
instead of coming in as revenue in the planning engineering lines.
Because that comes out of the beginning balance.
You see where I'm getting at, Rich? We have a liability that we really don't have on the books. If we budget 50 in and 50 out, we're not addressing the 17.2 liability.
The 17.2 liability has basically been absorbed into the general fund and budgeted out in other ways. We haven't paid it back. We're using that $50,000, which was listed as pass-through money, as a way to pay back that $17,000.
Well, then, okay, maybe the way to do it then is, if it's gonna roll over into the beginning balance, the 17.2 will need to come out of, say, planning fees. The revenue will have to be reduced by that much. The expenditures will be the same. So Well, we need to adjust the number that way.
Well,
Can be done either way.
it's refunds of deposits, right? That's what the money is.
Uh-huh.
It's construction deposit refunds.
And you already have it, and it's already been rolled into the beginning balance of the general fund, correct? Is that where that money is now, Mary Ann?
Yes, it is. And I'll be taking it out of the beginning balance at the end, when I get June done, so that that beginning balance that's gonna come forward at auditor time will not have the 17.2 in it.
Okay, so where will that 17.2 have gone?
It's in our balance sheet account as a liability.
Where's the
So it's not-
17.2
hold on,
that you
hold on,
collected?
Hold on a second. So the 17.2 isn't even gonna be part of this budget? That's
No,
what
the
you're saying?
utility deposits are not part of this budget. They are in the liability.
No,
So
the 17.2 is gonna be paid before we enter this budget cycle. If you're paying it in June, then it won't even be a
It's
consideration.
gonna come out of the beginning balance and be our liability. There's no guarantee that those refunds will happen if the projects have not been finished
Okay, where is
that are on the books.
Then where would you book the liability, I guess is what we're trying to get to. Where do you book the liability? If it's a general fund liability, where is it booked?
Not a budget item.
It's,
I beg your pardon?
It's not a budget item.
What do you mean it's not a budget item?
It's not an expense of the district. It's a liability, and budgeting doesn't do it like that.
So she's gonna take the
balance.
money
Out of this
balance
budget.
the fund. She'll reduce the
If
beginning
it's in
balance in
revenue,
that.
it should have to go from revenue to liability. Yes.
Okay, where's the
And
17.2?
the expense is not,
It comes
it's
in
an
here.
accounting piece, but it's not an expense, but we track it in when we do.
I would
financials.
assume that a refund means that you have collected money, right? You've collected money. A refund is giving back,
I'm fine with it. She's going to take an amount equal out of the beginning balance, equal to the liabilities. Is that correct?
okay.
yes.
Equal to liabilities is gonna be deducted from beginning balance. So then the 50/50 is fine.
So that means we change the beginning balance that's reflected here, correct? If we know that it's not going to be this, we're supposed to make a realistic expectation. If we're gonna be taking 17.2 out of this beginning balance and we know it, we
But
need
that's
to
not
do
the-
that now.
but That's not even, it's January 31st, so you can't even use that. So,
So, but we still need to remove it from the beginning balance. Don't we? Okay, so what do we do with it? What is your suggestion? We change contract servicing planning to $40,000. We change contract service engineer pass-through to $40,000. We have contract service planning city for $15,000, yet that we don't have an offset for that. So, shall we handle that? Tiffany?
Yeah, well, see, that's,
Where's it come from?
okay,
That's my question on it.
that's,
Okay.
It's not from the plan.
okay. Yeah, so this is, yeah, because it's
It's-
100,
The 15 is coming out of general fund, which is property taxes. It's not coming through
right,
fees.
right.
Yes.
But still, we add to 290 again, and now we're $15,000 off, because that shouldn't be part of that 290,000 from the revenue on the front page.
We dropped that revenue down to 80,000.
I understand that, but
She's
you
talking
gave
about
us,
the
okay, well, I'm
290.
talking about these new worksheets that you gave us.
Yes.
Okay. On the front, we have planning fees passed through 140,000. We also have planning engineer estimates, $150,000.
This is still 290 and they got money
Okay,
here.
and on page 4,
Not
the
working.
planning fees for the city weren't included in that $290,000, and now they are, so now it's off $15,000. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because if you add 15, 125, and 100,000, you have $290,000, but last week, that wasn't part of the 15,000.
That's a new category.
Wasn't part of the,
And that's what you asked, was a new
Right.
category
A new
for planning
category,
fees.
but we're
But
not
yes, okay.
marking it as pass-through
okay,
money.
but here's my point, Okay, you add that 50,000, the 125 and the 100,000, you only have 175,000, and we're off $15,000 now. Because that's not part of that pass-through.
Mr. Carson?
Yes, Rich?
I feel like saying uncle, you know, okay. I'll fix it.
It doesn't make sense.
I understand.
You give up?
I give up.
How about Beetlejuice?
No, I understand what you're saying, and I just need to sit down, I mean, just like we did with the original 50/50 number, that it didn't make any sense, and just work it through. But you're right, the 15 should be part of the 290. If it's coming, and I still have to
And
wrap
right
my,
now, there's no revenue to offset that 15,000 because it balanced before that was added.
well,
The city planner is not the planning for the city is not a pass-through. Those are
I know
expenses
that isn't.
But it's
that
in-
we,
right, but it's in the 290.
I realize
the
that.
290 is
It should
over
be
here.
included in the 290.
Come in, and that's not gonna work.
Right.
okay, I need to talk to you after budget, then I don't understand.
Kevin?
I just one more question on a related thing, and then I'll shut up. Is there a report that shows the liabilities that the city has, that, like this deposit refund? Is there some report that shows all of the liabilities that were?
I have a report that shows all the deposits, yes.
Is there money representing those deposits sitting anywhere, or that?
It's in the liability of the balance sheet, yes.
So it's in the liability, which means that when the deposits come due, it's taken out of?
Of the liability.
Is it a large amount, or is it a small amount, or, I
The
mean? I just-
utility deposits are fairly large.
and-
Are they in a tax-bearing account or something, or?
All of our money is in, I mean, we have a banking account, we have a government pool. And those monies the money in the government pool is a interest-bearing account.
Okay, and so they're considered to be liabilities, but the money is there to give back?
Yes, it
Right.
is.
Okay.
So how do,
It's not part of the operating budget.
okay.
And I understand,
But how is it not? I mean, we approve the bills to refund the monies.
yes, and it comes out of that liability. It lowers that liability.
So why isn't that the case with this? Why does this show up
Can we-
as a refund on this?
They're gonna take care of it. Let's
Okay.
put that to bed.
Okay. No, okay. Are there any more discussions on the debits of the general fund?
Well, one thing, the second column we added, it says approved. If you want to use a different word, that's fine. I mean, basically, it's an adjustment made on budget committee recommendations. So it could be temporary approval or whatever. It's not a final, it's not final.
Well, that's what I thought, until I saw the 140 and 150, because that's, contrary to what we had discussed.
Call it pending.
Huh?
Call it pending. Pending approval, or just
Okay.
pending.
So those changes are reflected. And what's happening now is planning fees pass through and planning and engineering estimates pass through are $40,000 each, and they pass through under the same headings under the debit column. There's been a separate column added for contract services planning in regards to city expenditures. Kevin?
And the $50,000 construction deposit, revenue, 50,000 construction deposit refund.
I need to look at that. I'm trying to still deal with 17,200, so just let me,
Okay, well,
I don't really understand why it's there if none of the other deposits are there. Why isn't it handled in the same way as all the other deposits? Why is it there at all?
what other deposits?
Well, the utility deposits.
Deposit.
All right.
That's why I recommended we take it out last meeting, but
Right.
But
Well,
because there was a $50,000 issue, I put them back in so that we could kind of correlate with the 50,000, which had nothing to do with the deposit or the beginning balance.
Is it the consensus of the committee, of the budget committee, that we will remove the refund construction fees deposits from this budget and put it with the liabilities? No?
I think we need to let
You're
Rich,
stating the
Okay.
same.
Right.
I was just trying to get some clarification, but Rich is gonna address it, he's gonna come back with a recommendation at the next meeting.
Okay.
Is there a reason why we can't have the same thing for our deposits that we do on our utilities? Do we not have an estimate of how much we're gonna get in deposits and then how much,
No,
and
we
then it has to be the
don't
same?
know.
Huh?
We don't know when people move in,
No,
move
no,
out.
I
We don't know.
understand that, but we still have that, we get that deposit money. Sometime we have to pay it out in the future,
Yeah.
so why can't it just be a utility deposits? It'll be basically a pass-through, it will have,
It's just not normally part of the operating budget. That's part of governmental accounting. It's not part of an operational budget.
how do you track it then?
I track it in my liabilities in my balance sheet accounts.
So why is this an exception? Is there an answer for that? And why was this rolled over into the beginning balance, the deposits,
Because
instead of held
history-
separately?
History did that, and I kept it there until I could balance the deposits.
I see.
I balanced them this year,
Mhm.
and at one time I had 17.2. I put the 50 back in, again, for correlation, so you understand it. Obviously, it's making more confusion, so I don't know what else to explain.
So if you did take that out, it would affect the beginning balance by 17.2, because you would have to put that in the other fund, correct? We'll just move on, like I said. We'll wait to
Rich and
get
I are
your-
gonna have to look at that again.
Okay, so, are there any other questions about the debits in this department?
Do you want the deposits moved, removed, or not?
Now let's wait.
You wanna wait?
Let's
Okay.
wait.
Look at it.
Let's wait. Let's don't move.
And I had a question about, Marianne, what was it, on page 2, under changes needed to budget, there's a negative 480 and a positive 500 on our camera
Okay.
operator.
The negative 480, I just wanted you to see that we removed that,
Okay.
okay? As far as the 500, you took that out of tourism, and somebody's gotta pay for the camera operator for tourism, so that really needs to be added to the 1,000, but you hadn't done that yet, so it's a reminder
Okay.
that that needs to be done.
Also, we removed, the costs for flowers, and that was moved to the general fund, and that's not reflected yet.
That's in the property department,
Page 5.
page 5. You'll notice I have that 800 off to the side for plants and supplies. I did move the 7,000 from tourism for the landscape and flower and put that in because you did, that is a contract that needs to go into there. The 800, I question, and just let me look something up here real quick.
Where is that 7,000?
The $7,000 is...
Right above it. Contract service.
No, don't. Don't. I could smash the wood.
Oh, you're right.
Materials and services, right in the middle.
What's the 800 over to 7,000?
Right above it, 2 lines above it.
Okay.
It says contract services, landscape, flower maintenance.
Were those the only two things that were moved, as the 7,000 and the 800?
No, the camera operation that I just mentioned, and then you'll notice there's labor off to the side in property. That is the labor for the part-time person. And I still have a question on the public works superintendent labor.
What's the total on that, 11,500?
It was 11,515.
15.
Yes. So I basically, I'm asking, is that how you want me to budget that, is add that to the property as the line items recommend?
The line items under changes needed to be budgeted.
Yes. See, that 2,312 would need to be added to the 1,000 to make it 3,312. And the same with the 215 and the 333 and on down the line.
And what was your question about the public works superintendent there?
Well, I'm still not sure how much,
To budget in for that
well,
amount?
because the public works superintendent is going down to contracted services, and I did create a line item for that in public works. And is that 7,280 to be moved down into that line item, straight across? And Rich and I hadn't talked about that yet, so,
Well, the council talked about it at the last meeting in terms of reprogramming the money into, that was saved, into creating a utility foreman, which is more of a lead position, it would cost slightly more, and taking the balance of the money and put it in as temporary workers, so they could hire people like during the summer and that kind of thing. So for now, that's the way it would be handled. So we need to talk about how that works.
yeah, you've got 35,000 for public works
Right.
superintendent. I don't know how that's supposed to go, so.
That goes into contract services, under material and services.
But how much of that 35,000 goes to property?
Oh,
How
okay.
much goes to water, how much
What
goes
do
to
you
sewer?
have the divide as now
You
for
just
the
spread it.
public works supervisor?
Okay, but that public works gets more money than the 35,000.
But it's the
so
same proportion.
Same
That's
proportion?
what I haven't.
Same proportion.
Same
Okay, so
proportion, okay.
we'll take,
Same
we'll
proportion.
take what the council gave us and we'll redistribute it in those categories. So that,
Okay.
that's fine.
Darlene,
Could you clarify, you'll redistribute it into the public works categories?
Now, the places now where the public works superintendent shows up in different dollar amounts proportionally as personnel services, we will redistribute it by the same proportion in material and services under the contract line item. So it'll be in the same fund, same proportion, but the number shifts from what it was before down to a straight 35,000, but then we'll spread it across the different funds, property being one of them, but also streets, water, sewer. But just like it is now, except it's going from personnel services to material and services as a contract item for a lesser amount, but the same distribution.
And historically, it's been in property,
Yes,
the utility workers
Yes.
and the superintendent.
yeah, that hasn't changed.
okay.
So are there any other areas in these revisions that you gave us that we still need to address as far as allocating expenses and revenues? Because we do need to move forward. We're not gonna finish this because they're gonna bring it back to us.
Right.
Some revisions already.
Right. Well, I'm not sure that we're doing what we need to do here. We've looked at revenues. Okay, we're not even,
I guess my question
Okay.
revolves around page 5. At the bottom of page 5, 21,500, 22,600, and then $800. Do we need to combine the 21 and the 22 together, and then we have 800 left over, or what?
No. Do I need to move the 800 for plants and supplies over into the property department?
yes.
Okay?
The way it works is, proposed is what the balanced budget the staff brought forward. Approved is what you have approved up to date, the changes needed are questions that we still have that we need an answer to. So
Okay.
you can just basically, at this point, eliminate proposed, it's just there for historical reasons. Approved is what you've been doing, and changes needed are questions we have, because we don't understand where you want to program the money necessarily.
With the
So then we have
exception of
the-
the pass-through.
Then we have the 10,145 at the middle of that page that we need to address, is that correct?
Right. The tourism for the expenditure of the seasonal worker, do you want me to just take that dollar figure that is off to the right, says changes needed to budget, and add it to add it to those line items that come across into property? Is that where you wanted the seasonal worker to go?
I personally think that we should create a beautification fund line item, and the general fund should fund it. It accomplishes the same thing, and it's a lot less complicated for the tourism committee to be able to handle their work that way, if they have a separate fund to work with. Are there any comments on that? Don?
Well, this money theoretically will be the tourism, the tax, won't it? Most of the money comes out of the hotel tax, doesn't it? Basically.
I mean,
Kind of.
that was
It all goes into
the
the general.
intention
Yeah,
of the
but it's-
budget committee that, yes.
If you could separate it some way, it's sort, yeah, okay.
Kevin?
I do agree. I don't know how we're gonna, how could we keep the expense
They'll all be folded in.
thing for the tourism beautification committee?
think it's a good
How do they know how much money they have to spend if it's lumped in with
I
all
think
these other items?
there should be another fund created, and who handles that
Not
fund?
necessarily a line, maybe a
Department.
multi-part.
Department.
Yeah, some department or
Yeah.
And those expenses should be totally separate with the revenue to offset them, which shows up as a liability in the general funds, right?
You're not gonna have a revenue source for it.
No? Okay. No revenue source. But it'll be in the general fund. Okay. Because we only have one revenue source for the entire general fund. Right. I know, but one department to handle all these other departments. Is that too much of a problem, Mary Ann? Excuse me, Mary Ann.
Yes, ma'am.
You have a question?
I was just talking with Rich to confer if he wanted possibly create another department within the property for the beautification. Was my question to Rich.
That sounds like a good idea to me. Separately, so it's, so the tourism committee knows how much they have left, right? Okay, do I have consensus on that? Everybody in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Opposed?
Is that two? Okay, Shauna and Lance are opposed. Oh, and Karen, and would you
And
like to
Bobby.
give your read, and Bobby? Bobby, would you like to give your reason?
Well, confusion is the main reason here. I'm trying to track with Mary Ann's concerns, and I understand the need for the tourism committee to know how much they're spending, but I'm not hearing from Mary Ann how this is gonna be fixed, so.
Should be easier in the long run. Let me talk to the people who voted no first. Karen? Oh, okay. Lance?
I was happy with the way it was before.
Okay, Sean?
I don't see why we took, the landscape flower maintenance away from the responsibility of the tourism, and now the general fund is responsible
Darlene?
I think that putting the,
Well, we understand how you feel, Shauna. You objected at the time.
Well, after you vote, and then you have your chance to say why you voted that way, it's not a debate, it's not a discussion,
I'm
you don't have to
not saying
respond
it's
to
a
what
debate.
everyone's
Okay,
saying. It's
okay,
what
thank
you
you.
are.
I'll take your advice into consideration.
It's a legacy thing.
I
That's
was
right.
just saying that it's clear for the next budget committee and people looking at the budget to see a beautification line item rather than have it all added into the existing line items that are there in property. It just kind of separates it so we know that this is beautification projects. It just seems clearer in my mind to separate
Guida?
it.
Well, and I would agree, because there are events, there's brochures, there's several different categories, and it would be easier for us to have it defined as beautification with this name.
Laura?
I thought that it was changing and that there was OR, that's about who did what, and that was the reason for making the changes. And therefore, if the general fund is getting a certain amount from tourism, be it 30, 50, 70, what be it, and then it has certain criteria that it's supposed to use to spend that money, then a fund would be appropriate to show that that is being expended correctly.
I agree with that. Okay, Tom, did you have a comment?
We need to move on, because there's not a motion on the floor or anything else for discussion.
Okay. And do we just leave it like it is, or is it gonna be changed?
We vote,
we
we
vote.
voted
A consensus vote.
Okay.
to,
Change it.
It
so
passed.
it's been changed.
Okay. Any other comments on the expenses? Anybody else have more questions?
It is going to be changed in the property.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Okay, so should we move to planning department too? Page 4?
Did we do all that last?
We did, but it was put on the agenda, and so I don't know if there are changes here that we need to make. Because.
Address it as part of the new paperwork that's handed out before you.
Right.
Then we need to go to 6.
Government and community relations, we've already done that, and we already did the police. Okay.
Scratch everything on this, right?
Yeah.
That's the ordinance enforcement officer.
You got a hand up.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
on page 5, property maintenance materials, $5,750. That needs to be added to the approved. That should have been carried over for the following budget year. Right?
What are you looking at?
Or am I
now?
looking at it wrong?
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, it's where it says,
Page 5.
it's above, right above plant supplies and below landscape flowers.
Okay.
It's property maintenance materials that should be carried over.
That didn't get carried
To,
over.
to the,
Okay.
Got it.
Okay.
Anything else?
Are we on page 6 now?
Also on page 4, shouldn't we carry
Page
over
4.
like postage and, let's see, refund planning fees, I don't know if that's the same thing as construction fees?
Page 6. Page what? 4.
Office supplies, all of these need to be carried over, and they're pretty.
My question was was that approved last meeting? I'm sorry, I didn't go through the minutes line item by line item. Did you approve the materials and services, just not the personnel services?
Just not the personnel. I think the only thing that we didn't do was the personnel. Now, did we discuss travel and training? I remember discussing
For planning, we did.
for planning. Okay. Did we discuss, travel and training on page 4? Under materials and service, about the middle of the page?
I had no changes to that,
Okay.
but I didn't know if you had any more questions.
Question is, we move these.
Are there any questions with the way things are listed, everything except the personnel expenses?
Hand up.
Darlene?
I believe, I wasn't at the meeting, but I watched the tape, and I believe that there were questions on travel and training. Wasn't there as far as, what conferences that
Yes.
staff was going to attend, if they were required for certification, and I think Sandra, you had asked you wanted notified if it was required for certification, what travel and training was required for certification.
Right.
If the city required, and the assistant needed to go the same years.
And if it could be offered online.
Did you get that
Right,
email
that's
from
what
Kathy?
they said, yes.
Online
Yeah.
or, what's that?
Yeah.
Because
Because
we haven't
sure what
approved
it's
that
showing.
yet, that we were still discussing it.
Skype.
Yes, it is. Because
We
part of
have-
their travel and training deals with planning. So the planning budget is admin.
Travel and training, Fund 1,
with
Department
planning.
1's 3,500. How much do we
Their
have
budget is
total for travel and training? We have it listed several
And that
times.
covers their portion of their IMC.
I know, but it's planning.
I saw $2,000.
They do with planning, reporting, all that at their office.
Right here, travel and
Yeah,
training.
that email.
Yeah, no, I got it, I just didn't know where it was.
Yes.
That's the one that Sherelle helped us on page, in section 5, and had that breakout. She explained that half of that amount was for the planning department training, and the other part was for the actual, the IC, the different acronyms.
Yeah, there's a detail in section 5 on what planned training there is and how it's spread throughout all the funds.
And so did we leave that as it is, or did we reduce it?
That was the one where Darlene was saying we needed more information.
There was a
Right.
question.
Did you remember that information, Mary
She
Ann?
put a dollar amount in it. I don't know that she had a dollar amount, did she?
No, because this is our dollar amount. Back in travel and training.
I thought it was reduced to 15.
I'm not sure she heard this.
Yep.
Mary Ann, did you have any information about the travel and training?
See?
I didn't even remember.
Well, I mean, in the budget document, we've spelled out what the travel and training is specifically for and assigned dollar amounts
I
to
think the
it.
questions were, if I remember correctly, after being reminded,
Yeah, I got that.
Well, that's her response to it.
There's no dollars.
do you want to,
Just because
do
they're.
you want to talk about what you guys are talking about, or what?
Sorry.
Okay, Kevin?
Well, at the risk of bogging this whole thing down, the 1140 that Sherelle was talking about is actually a Department 21 expense, not this fund expense. I mean, I realize that it's being, part of it's being supported by this, but it's an administrative expense,
In the general fund.
but it's a Department 21 expense, right?
Yeah.
Because they're mixing, there's the money for the planning department to get training, but then there's also money for staff to get training, but they're both listed as Department 2, as opposed to elected officials training and administrative
Staff.
expense training, travel and training.
So
And
where,
that's kind of where the confusion, that's kind of what,
Okay.
this is kind of.
so if you divided them, where would you put,
Well, we know what they are.
No, what-
Sherelle has a little chart in the back.
right, I'm looking at it, the question is, where do you want to put it?
Well, weren't we discussing having planning be a separate, did we say fund?
Or
Yeah, being able
Or
to
separate
consider
department.
21 expenses across the board, I think was the issue.
not sure how we got in, I was getting back to planning. We had talked about coming up with a consistent, you know, numerology or whatever you want to call it, to identify administration across all funds.
Okay, and this is an administrative expense, because these funds are being used by the administration department. Part of it is being used by the administration department to train its staff.
Some of
And
it,
that should be a Department 21 expense that's identified as an administrative expense, because it is an administrative expense.
Okay?
And as far as consistency, that's exactly what my point was having this combined together, what we're spending to train elected officials and the administrative part of it makes it difficult to identify which is which.
Well, so do you want us just to separate the travel and training into what is and is not Department 21?
Sure. I mean, what,
Okay, we can do, like, okay, now, but the question is, in terms of this, do you want to carry over, you know, these administrative costs? Right now, they were in the original proposed budget, and we haven't put them in the approved budget, so do you want to carry those over and show, no matter how you identify them, we'll go back and identify them, but do you want to, you know,
I think the questions that were asked is, can some of these classes be taken online? That was one question. Another question was, how, you go to a training session every year, is that required? To keep
they can't be taken online, and they are, some, ones that we're talking about are required.
are annually required? That was the question. How often are they required?
Why don't you answer it?
Is it a can or cannot be?
Cannot.
I talked to Kathy today, and one of the items that you questioned was the IIMC conference. That is a national conference that's never been held in Portland before, and probably will never be again, according to the email I got from Kathy. This is a first-time event and maybe the last, because they hold it mostly on the East Coast, not out here. The best guess she has for this, because they don't have the registration or the cost yet online so they can look at it, this is her best guess as to what the cost may be. It may be lower.
$1,000 for lodging, and
It's-
they're having it in Portland?
It's for the meals and for travel, because they have to travel to and from. The lodging and meals is the title, but they're not gonna be staying anywhere, they're coming back.
And they'll be coming back for dinner, no doubt, also. Now,
Some of the dinners,
any of the conferences I've ever attended have lunch included usually.
and some of them do. We don't know about this one. This is a conference they've never gone to. She said there would be a cost of the conference, which we don't know yet, and no lodging, as they will be commuting. They don't know about the meals until there's a schedule out for the conference. They do usually have a dinner that night. I don't know, or one of those nights, I don't know if that's included or not.
$1,000 worth of meals in a week is a little bit
This is for
rich
two
my
people.
blood.
This is for 2 people, it's for Sue and Kathy to go.
Darlene?
So you're saying that this IIMC is required, but they've not gone in the past?
No, it's not required, that's not
It's-
what she's
Okay,
saying.
I thought she said it was
She's saying this
required.
is a good opportunity because it's local.
Okay, I thought she said it was
I
required.
think Mr. Carson said something was required.
Maybe it was me.
So is it required, but we've not?
No, but they get credits for the classes they attend, which goes towards their master clerk certification that they must keep on. Sue has not got her master clerk certification. She is working towards it, and she will be attending the second of 3 sessions this summer, and we've already paid for this, so if she doesn't continue her classes, it's basically a waste of what we've already spent to get her master clerk
So
certification.
is that a requirement of the city for that job duty to have that certificate?
Why are we
That
budgeting
can't
for
be.
it next
I can't.
year if you already paid for it?
haven't paid
the
for it.
conference
I
next
thought
year.
you said that you already paid for it,
No,
and it would be,
That's prior training.
Continuation of the.
it's continuation of their MMC certification.
Laura?
And I would just want to follow through with no online, no Skype, no conference, I mean, other than going, that's the only way.
It is my understanding that that's the only way they get credit is if they physically show up to these classes.
That is very interesting.
Are there, Eva?
Just from being an EMP and going with my continuing education at my job, usually if they have like a national conference or something like this, they're specializing in a certain area and trying to encompass as much of the continuing education as they can manage. Does that make sense? So, I see what they're saying, it's kind of a unique opportunity is what it sounds like because they don't normally come here. So, what they're trying to do is take care of their continuing education, big bang for the buck. For this year.
I understand.
Not
I'm
every-
questioning $1,000 for meals and lodging when it's in Portland. Shauna?
Madam Chair, that's a proposed amount. That's not what they're gonna be given a check for. That is a proposed amount. That, they can't say the exact amount at this time.
I would like to propose less. Lance?
I just wanted to say, I think it's a good idea to train the staff, to provide, these kinds of opportunities for the staff, just as a general policy for any organization.
Any other comments? Tiffany?
I'm a little concerned that it's over $10,000. It seems like an awful lot, and I'm wondering if we have to go to the fall and the spring conference, and
Fall and speak conference for what?
there you have the fall and the spring for the OMFOA. What is that?
That's the Oregon Municipal Finance Officers Association, that would be my conference. And I have not attended it for the past year because I don't have time to take off during those times. So unless I can go, I normally only go to one of them. But like I said, I didn't even go this year to either of them. But I don't want to not budget for it in case I can go to at least one.
Okay.
You have two budgeted here?
Yeah, I don't know if I'll be able to go to both. If you want to take one of those out, feel free to take one out.
Which one? Spring?
Yeah, feel free to take the spring out.
And it says for 2 employees, so that would be you and
Sherelle, I'm trying to get Sherelle involved in that so she can get some education also.
Darlene?
From a budgetary standpoint, I would like to know which of this training is required and which is optional. Does that make sense? So that if we needed to reduce somewhere, that we could look at that as what's required and what's optional, so that we could fund it appropriately?
Rich?
Well, I would say not to do that, mainly because there's a difference between certifications and best management practices. And it would be, I mean, part of what you go to these conferences for is to learn best management practices and bring them back to the city to save money, or at least be more efficient. So it isn't just a matter of certifications, like being a EMS, EMT or something like that. There is a benefit to the city.
Darlene?
I would agree that there's a benefit to the city, but I'm talking as a budgetary standpoint, what's required, what's optional. Any employee can always go to council and say, there's a fall conference, it's in my field, and I would like to attend, and that could be brought to council for recommendation. I'm looking at the dollars. If we're gonna budget $10,350.
We know the amount we need to come up with to service this debt now, and by leaving everything as it is, we're not finding the debt. Did you bring back a recommendation where we can service the debt, Rich?
Not yet.
Okay, well, we're getting on. I mean, we really don't have a lot more time. to come to the same spot each time, and that's, we need to start cutting these projected expenditures in order to make room to service this staff.
You got a hand up there.
Karen?
My recommendation, if you have an issue with the amount of the travel and training, is reduce it by a set amount and let staff decide what they're not going to attend.
I agree with
So
that.
if you say, let's reduce it $1,000, we don't have to sit here and say, you can't go to this conference. Because there might be something really valuable at that conference, and they would say, I'd rather not attend one of the others. And I think that is an idea.
Kevin?
Actually,
And I just want to add to that, that it would be mandatory that, we don't choose to do a volunteer thing when we have a required thing, so that we do required things always as primary, and then look at electives.
Kevin?
and also, it would be easier if we just had a set per diem instead of, well, we're not sure what it's gonna cost or whatever. Because actually it's $1,000 for 2 people for 5 days is $100 per person per day for meals, and that seems a little bit much. We have a policy about using the LWO card for transportation, so the mileage isn't an issue. And that's, I guess, it's back to a policy thing, but if there was just a set amount where we are gonna budget, when people go to conferences, we're gonna budget $50 for meals per person per day, I mean, that would be fine. To say we just don't have any idea what it's gonna cost is an open-ended
We have mileage,
thing.
we have per diem.
No, we do not. It's not one of our policies for.
And, there seem to be some conflicts here.
Mr. Carson.
Okay,
In terms of the per diem, I mean, that's something that the council can take up. We do mileage, we don't do per diem. I think at this point, it would be best to just set a dollar amount and let the city administrator decide what is required for certifications, what is good for best management practices, and who has the time to go where and when, and not get into the weeds in terms of this program or that program, or the relative merits of it.
Do you have a suggestion
I agree with that.
for what we could reduce this by safely and still be able to address the continuing education needs of the city?
well, we certainly could reduce it by a significant amount for what's allowed for meals and lodging.
No, I mean,
Lance?
Mr. Carson's actually.
well, I would think that 1,500 to 2,000 per staff person per year, and that includes everything, lodging, registration, travel, meals, all of that,
That's more than what we have budgeted.
That's more than that.
No, I don't, it isn't for everybody in administration. It's probably for about 5 people, which would be 7,500 to 10,000. That's where I see that number. Forget the line item, just from 30 years of experience, that's kind of where I try to budget at, to keep some quality control over it. It's like, basically you're allocated so much for travel and training and education, that kind of thing.
Lance?
Okay, so my question is, are we talking about the 9th page of section 5 in terms of making an adjustment? Or are we back to our agenda where we're talking about, on page 4, materials and services, line item $2,000 for travel and training? Because if we're talking about making adjustments to the sheet in the back, I'm not sure that moves us forward when we're talking about, Department 2 planning, and we got hung up on, making a decision about travel and training, $2,000 there. So I'm just curious where, I see, I understand the arguments and so on, but I'm just curious where all this leads us in terms of moving forward with our agenda. And I guess that'd be directed to you.
Well, so we've kind of gone 2 directions on this. One is, in planning, in material and services, we move these numbers over, and is that, you want to approve that? The other question is more global in that the overall travel and training for administration, should it be at some level? So if you tell me that it's going to go from 10,350 down to some number, then we'll go back and reallocate it in administration, line by line for travel and training. There's no point trying to do it now. I mean, the basic question is, we're in planning, but it's going to be for everything in general fund. Do you want to accept the travel training, which ones are it? Hang on.
Mary Ann, was this allocated in
What
the same percentages to other departments as well?
The percentages are listed on that page 1, in section 5, about, 1, 2, 3.
This is the 9th page.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Ninth page?
Kind of got our numbers, looks like.
Yeah, the specific, well, it shows,
9th page, right.
which one are we?
See, it's all through, this 10,300 is through all of these.
That 2,000.
So if you go down, then we have to reallocate.
Okay, but the other question is, we didn't move numbers over.
Okay,
Oh,
Tom,
they haven't moved revenue, they haven't moved any of that.
Question for Mary
That I know.
beg your pardon?
I got a question for Mary Ann.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I know throughout the board, we've done that in the past too. We budget almost every year for, well, we used to budget on the board budget for training, and there'd be a lot of years we didn't do the training at all, but it was always in the budget. And then I noticed you've made the statement that, we budgeted you for this, but you didn't go last year. So part of that question is that, so we know where you're at on this, is some, you go when you can, and sometimes you can't go.
Correct.
So how much of that happens with everybody then? So is it common for, the budget for the 10,000, and then a lot of people not get to make it to these things commonly anyway?
Well, because the,
Is it more than just you that's not making it to these training sessions?
it's more difficult for us to go being in accounting versus the city recorders. They usually try to go because they have to keep their certification up, so they try to go. I don't have a certification as they do. So if I miss a conference, I miss the training, yes, but it's not detrimental to my certification. So in your answer to your question, sometimes they do, but not likely. The best I can
We
tell.
do show actuals for that line item for the past, so you can see in any given fund, how much was spent for travel and training in the past. Again, we're talking about two issues. One is globally, what the total dollar amount is. Then specifically, we were on page 4 in asking, under material and services, is where office supplies, travel and training, dues and publication, land use hearing, land use filing fees. Do you want those, to move those numbers over as part of the budget?
Kevin?
So I would, we're kind of branching off into several, so I would make a motion to take Mr. Carson's advice and budget $7,500 globally for travel and training for administration. And then they will update the splits.
Right.
Okay.
Now,
As part of that motion,
21, excuse me, 2150, I just wanted to, before you, did not apply to administration of this money. So I don't know if you want to qualify your motion with for administration.
What
Additional training, mileage, et cetera, for other funds of 21,
What is that?
2150?
Where are we?
On that page, in
On
the back sheet, in the
that
back.
back page which says how you've charged it off.
Admin, plan training, including planning, and additional travel training, what is that last?
Additional travel training, what is that?
That's for reimburse any mileage
That's mileage.
or
Says mileage.
Well, mileage, et cetera.
Okay.
Okay, so,
So that's,
Again, I would suggest that you look at the a total number that we can allocate across all funds and not worry about the detail.
You were starting to say,
Well, we'll take a look.
Okay, go ahead. Will
That's
you
it.
restate your motion?
That we take Mr. Carson's advice and allocate $7,500 for administration, travel and training totally, globally, entirely. Including mileage, including everything, $7,500 period.
And reallocate it.
Second?
It's already been seconded.
Okay. Bobby, do you have some discussion?
Discussion is that that would amount to about a 26 or 27% cut in that part, so.
Kevin?
I would say that that's based on an expert's opinion, that $1,500 is a reasonable amount annually for that particular thing, and I'm comfortable with that.
Eva?
I just wanna make sure that, did you say $1,500 or did you say 1,500 to 2,000? I mean, I just wanna clarify on that. Do you think the $1,500 is gonna cover, or you said 1,500?
I said,
thought I heard 1,500.
I said the range was 1,500 to 2,000 per person per year. And that the 2,000 is reflected in the $10,350 here. But I said there's a range.
Okay, everybody in favor of that, please say aye.
Aye.
Everybody opposed?
I abstain, I didn't hear the proposal.
I'm sorry, was that?
Laura,
And Laura, why did you?
I'm just kind of frustrated, so I just want to poke it.
Madam Chair, since it's after 8 o'clock, can we
Yeah, we'll take a 10-minute break.
City department.
We can do until figure and is brought back to us on where we stand and how much money we need to come up with to do this debt. We pretty much, the best that we can do at this point is go through the line items on the expenditures and see if there's any more possibilities for reduction. And I don't believe we ought to deal with the personnel expense tonight. That will be, there will be a suggestion from our city administrator on how to come up with the needed funds.
Really?
So I understand that, yes, Kevin.
So are we done with the general fund? Are we done scrutinizing the line items? Since
Are there any more line items that somebody feels could be reduced?
And I just wonder if staff has any questions about
Any of the things that we've done?
Well, there's a few things that were mentioned that Marion and I are going to have to talk about, try and sort through, but no.
Because pretty much at this point, because the time is getting on, we have really 3 more meetings to accomplish what we need to accomplish in, and really 4, I guess, counting the one on the 15th, which doesn't give Mary Ann very much time before the 17th to put the ad in the paper for the required notice. And so, we need to have something brought back to us in a readable form, so we know how much, we know what your suggestions are on how to come up with this money.
So I make a motion to, if we're done talking about this general fund, I would make a motion to direct staff to bring back the general fund updated with the changes that have been made, so we know how much additional money we need to come up with to fund the debt service that the council passed at the last meeting. And then a recommendation as to how to meet that. So we have the money from the OEO position and the money from the changes that we've made through this general fund. I believe there's gonna be a balance left that we're gonna need to come up with.
You got all that?
I might not be able to quote it back verbatim until that.
No, can I stop that part of the motion and restate it and explain it? We're to the point where we've tried to come up with as much money as we could. But we don't know how much money we've actually been able to come up with, right? I don't know if anybody else does, okay. So without knowing that, we don't know how much additional money we need to come up with in order to have a balanced budget. So, my motion again is to direct staff to update the general fund to where we know how much money we have available to service the debt, and to make a recommendation as to where funds are available to service the remainder of the debt we need to service.
I'll second it.
Discussion, I guess would be the next.
Lance,
Just to clarify, is that within the next 2 days to come back with that, or is that by next week? By next week? And then just a question for your motion.
I think we need it on Friday.
I don't know what's doable, so I think it's the next step, and we can't go any further in the process until we have that.
Well, we can go through we can do the electric company on Friday if we need to. We haven't reviewed that fund at all.
That's true.
The electric and CAD TV, yes, Rich?
I understand the motion. Friday, I think would be almost impossible.
So Monday, Wednesday,
When,
excuse me,
next,
Wednesday.
next Wednesday, I think we could have some
And this
recommendations.
Friday, we need to finish that motion. We'll
Yeah.
do that afterwards. Tiffany
Want me to go for it?
or Bobby?
Do we have, is the debt reflected, the debt's not even reflected
No.
in here yet? Okay.
But I know what the debt is, and I know what it's gonna cost.
But we would like to see the debt reflected.
Right, and
I understand.
that's my question, is do we need to clarify those amounts in the motion, or just for clarification, so that everybody
I
knows
guess that's a good point.
the amounts that we're talking
Rich has
about?
his hand up.
The council already acted on the debt service, so I know what the total debt is, what the amortization schedule is. The numbers are done.
Does that include the McCoy property debt also? Those
It-
numbers have not been done.
That includes the fire station and the fire truck debt.
Right, well,
Not-
that's not all the debt we have to deal with. Yes,
Actually, the debt that I'm talking about is what was approved by council.
Right.
Has to be paid, so that's
Okay.
a separate issue, and unfortunately, time's short. But I guess for clarification, I would like to see the debt service numbers in the general fund. That makes it clean. I'm sure that's what you're gonna do anyway, but.
We'd have to.
Yeah.
well, then I have a question here. If it's just the 2 loans that they're going to do that on, what are we going to do with the 13,000 that needs to be paid back and with the 28,000?
The 28,000 is already programmed, and so is at the same time as the fire station debt. So the 450, and I think the 28 were both programmed, the 17 wasn't.
Okay.
No.
Yeah? There's two
The 20,
resolutions.
oh, I see what you're saying.
There were two
28,
resolutions.
so those two.
They could be separate line items, but they were
I think-
So they were rolled over into the one debt, into the 450,000?
No, they-
No?
the two debts were approved with 2 new resolutions with 2 separate schedules, so they could be 2 separate line items in the budget.
And so what about the debt from the McCoy property? That's, what, $28,000?
You mean the Cascade housing?
Yeah, Cascade.
The Cascade, she's talking about the money that
Cascade
that
housing.
was going to have to be paid back to the electrical department.
Well, part of it, it's in 3 pieces. We owed 61.5 as part of the memorandum of understanding. Part of it, I think it's 28,000, is going to be paid back through a land lease. Next to their project, they're going to lease it for their construction shed and for storage of topsoil and some other things.
I'm talking about the portion that isn't.
Well, part of it is an SDC credit, and the other part of it is work being done by labor and equipment by Public Works and City Light.
And that's what she's referring to.
That's
Yeah.
what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yeah,
And I understood that amount to be 28,000 or something?
it's,
Isn't that what you said, George?
Yeah,
And so
approximately.
yeah, it's
that
20-something.
needs to be budgeted for as well.
It's actually been budgeted for as part of the operating funds of those departments.
But it needs to be budgeted to be paid back.
It has been budgeted for.
Well,
Because we're using
it's,
it
in this case, it's not a loan. It is, you know, we haven't paid anything. We are paying for it out of an SDC basically refund or credit. We're paying for it out of the land lease, and it's coming, it's coming out of the, well, what I'm saying is, it is coming out of the operating, out of the department's operations.
We have to pay that fund back for that work. They can't do work without being reimbursed. They're being run as,
Yeah,
It's actually.
I don't know the answer to that question.
Because it's not something we have in front of us to address.
it is something that George mentioned when we were going over our debt.
Right, I understand.
There's a motion on the.
Okay. Call for the question?
I have one more question. It's kind of off topic a little bit, but the $44,000 hasn't been addressed. The money that was misallocated when it was received, is that debt just gonna sit there? The fire department building fund is $48,000 over budget.
Does that have to do with this motion?
It kind of does, because we're closing out the general fund.
Well,
And
that's.
I was curious whether we're gonna address that, or whether we're just gonna leave it sitting there.
Well, I think at a step level, and you know, I think we accounted for the difference in the money, and I don't think it isn't part of the loan. It was programmed incorrectly, but I don't think it has to be, anything else has to be done with it.
Well, unfortunately, there's a debt there.
Well-
Part of it was funded, $450,000 was funded with a loan. But there's, after the loan pays off the $450,000, there's still gonna be 40-some thousand negative,
44,000?
negative balance in that particular account. We is, and maybe that's not for this budget cycle. Maybe it's something we need to address in the next one. I don't know. It's been there for 3 years, so there's obviously not an emergency revolving around it. But I just wanted to make the point that is still there. If we're not gonna address it, let's knowingly not address it and move on and put it on the agenda for next time, but.
Well, I'd be glad to come back and address it. I just don't want to make it a loan.
I'm sorry, I think there's a million different ways it can be done, but I just didn't want it to be forgotten about. We could do it on the loan as part, whatever. But I just didn't want it to get forgotten about. If we're not gonna address it right now, let's put it on a list to be taken care of later, and realize that we have a plan to take care of it.
I thought that we kind of aced, that kind of leveled itself out with the presentation that was made in regards to the fire department money. That's what
I just had a question on the difference between the 44,670 and the 48,325. Why don't they balance?
You wanna try it?
Well, because they didn't expend all of, if the 48,000 was credited where it was supposed to have gone, then the extra 4,000 that is that they didn't spend would be put back into electric and applied to the $450,000 debt. Because obviously they did not expend all of their $450,000. Okay, they borrowed it, but they didn't have expenditures that equaled that. They spent less.
They spent less than the
Yes.
$450,000.
Yes, if that 48,000 was credited properly, then they would have spent less than the 450,000, and that money would go back against the $450,000 loan, back to the electric.
So you're saying that out of the 48,325, 44,670 was reimbursed back to utilities?
It's actually the opposite.
It's opposite way.
48,000 was reimbursed to utilities.
44,000 was mistakenly reimbursed. The total amount is 48,000. It's 3,600.
And the other 36 stayed, we don't know where, so do we know where the other 36?
It's a negative amount, not a positive amount.
Yes.
That's my
Bobby.
Madam Chair, I believe the motion that was put forward and was seconded was the debt service repayment of those two loans.
Yeah, that's
And
good.
so we should probably move along and.
Okay,
vote.
everybody in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Opposed.
Two opposed, Sean and Lance. Okay, now, I had a question.
Madam
And-
Chair,
Yes,
say that the motion carried,
motion
and then you
carried.
have to ask if anybody has a rebut, or
No,
wants to speak.
Shauna, would you like to say one?
Just on principle.
Okay,
And
yes, Kevin.
can we address the topic for the next meeting?
We can, but I would like to talk about this $28,000.
Okay, can we do that at the end of the meeting, so we're sure to have the time to
Okay.
address the next meeting?
So, can we have the electric representative here on Friday? Is that possible, do you know?
I don't know, I'll ask.
Okay, and we'd like to go over both the electric department and CAT TV on Friday, and so we can finish the general fund on the following Wednesday. And does anybody have a suggestion for a backup plan? What's left to do that we can do?
It's on the calendar that I gave you. On the bottom, it says notes remaining funds, electric, CATV, EMS, property tax rate, OIB loan, SDC, and capital reserve.
Alternative could be in that.
Hmm?
Alternative could be here.
Yeah.
I'll talk. Madam Chair,
Yes,
if the backup could be the fire fund. I mean, if for some reason I can't get Tracy here, then that could be the backup.
okay. And are there any objections? Kevin?
Would I suggest that we put all of the remaining funds on the agenda? And that way, we will certainly have something to talk about if both of them can't make it.
There you go.
What's that?
Put them all on the
You have
agenda.
them both.
And then if either one can't make it, we got something to talk about.
All right, everything's on the agenda.
Okay, now I'd like to get back, I had a question about the $28,000 that wasn't left.
Do we need consensus?
You can accept that as-
Do we need consensus?
Okay. Do I have a consensus on that? Everybody in favor, please say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Okay, now back to my question on the $28,000. If it's anticipated that this is going to be a debt that's going to incur this year, it has to be budgeted for now. It can't wait. It doesn't have to be done, it has to be only anticipated. And that's budget law. And so I see us having, since we know this is a debt that's going to occur, that we have to budget for it in some way.
I don't know all of that.
It has to come out of the general fund. It's money that's being
Yeah.
Staff time, materials, blah, blah, blah.
So it's not, none of it's city,
Can't do a supplemental budget for it.
it's all money trying to recoup to do the line.
the expense of doing the work, not the expense of paying to have the work done.
Mr. Fisher?
Yes, George?
Just a little clarification on that is the work that Tracy's going to be doing is all going to be on private property. Okay, so none of the work that he's actually doing is city work. It's work that he's doing to reimbursed for the land swap payment that was made between the city and Ruby Mason.
I just don't understand how we're going to pay the electric company back for the work they're doing.
I understand that. I was just trying to make sure that
No,
there
and
wasn't a
that is my
confusion.
point here.
All right.
And it isn't paid for, and budget law says very clearly that if it's anticipated, and this is something that's anticipated, that we have to address it at the budget. Am I correct?
Yeah, I agree.
With the people that attend, yes, Lance.
I didn't want to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Where were we at on our agenda tonight? Are we postponing Department 21 altogether? That's part of our agenda tonight.
Until we,
We're waiting for,
We are postponing that.
until we come back with another suggestion from,
And the general fund part of the agenda was taken care of with Kevin's motion.
yes. Okay.
Thank
Now,
you.
You're welcome. Now, back to this, I'm not trying to be obstinate here, but this is something that we have to handle as a budget committee. When something is anticipated, it just, to me, it is not an option just not to pay the electric company back for work it's being done.
Because you're talking about the staff hours and their benefits, it's going to be an expense to that department that can't just disappear.
No, and they were very clear at our seminar, and they're very clear in the handbook as well, that you can't do work from one department to another without reimbursing. If you have a department due money for a project on private property, it has to be paid for. And normally Ruby Mason or Columbia Housing would have paid for it, but in this case, we're refunding money in this way, so we have to pay for it. And this isn't an option. Kevin?
Rich, do you have a plan for reimbursing the electrical department for their expenses, or is there one in place, or one been developed, or?
I've only gotten as far as creating the MOU that accounts for the three different parts of the 61.5. No, I don't beyond that now.
They get the land. We'll give them the land.
The electrical department?
good thought, Tommy. I like that. I like that. The only problem is the city owns all the land.
Yeah, that's the deal.
Darlene?
Well, the city owns the electric department and the land, could that not be somehow put through as rent? No. So then this wasn't thought out to its entirety.
Well,
Actually, it was.
without-
It's actually, it was. It's, the only thing that hasn't happened, excuse me, I should have raised my hand. The only thing that hasn't happened is we haven't had the final MOU come to the council so the council could approve it. Once it was approved, we'd be automatically doing this. Automatically, we'd be saying that there's a debt that has to be repaid.
Kevin?
Lance, I was recalling that there was discussion on retaining this as part of the discussion about the deal, and that was, the property is going, that kind of takes off on Tom's saying, the property is going to the Parks Department. The Parks Department has SDC money available to pay for that property, $28,000 to the electrical department to cover their expenses as far as the work that they're doing.
Good, then we can budget that.
George
No.
says no.
No? Why?
No, because that work is on private property. That is not work. The money from SDC funds have to go for future development of that particular thing, okay?
He's suggesting that you pay for the land with it. You actually are buying parkland with park SDCs.
Yeah,
Now, that's,
And I think that's an excellent idea.
yeah, because the Park SDC fund would pay for the property, right? It would purchase the property, then there would be money there to pay for the work on private property. Because we would be purchasing the money, the property from William Mason, right?
So what you're suggesting
no.
is
Because
use park SDC funds to buy the property and then have William Mason pay the city for the story, the work that's gonna
Yeah,
happen.
exactly. And
That's-
for the,
Yeah.
and she would be paying to store the material on that property. And I mean,
Yeah, that's an idea that came out of it.
Yeah, you're right.
Previous.
And that's
discussion.
a good idea, and I think,
we'll have to look into that. That's, I see your point.
all I know is that during this budget process, and I'm gonna say this because I learned it, and I know it for sure, is this is an anticipated expense to the electric company, and we need to budget to pay it back. So how that's done is up to this committee, or up to the council.
The MOU is not done, it's under negotiation, I'm still negotiating it. So I would like to take all of this into account and work, see what we can do. And I'll, hopefully, we're getting pretty close to it, so I can give you an answer within the next, maybe the next week.
Until the MOU is signed, it's not an anticipated.
Yeah, and the council has not acted on it, so
He's exactly right.
anything could come up at the council from any council member, like you just talked about.
George, did you have another
No,
comment?
no, I was just thinking about that, just running it through my head. Darlene had a question.
Yes, Doug.
Laura had a question. She was asking about the property, when you said purchase the property with the SDC funds
From the park department.
from the park department. Is that property already in city trust? Does the city already own that property?
Ruby Mason,
She,
that's part of the 3 acres that she bought.
okay. So it's a portion of the 3 acres that she bought.
That was part of Two Spot Park.
But that exchange has already been made.
So Two-Spot Park was sold?
Processes.
No.
A portion of it, to have the access to get to
But
the
that was
McCoy
in the
property.
original land sale.
It was trust property, but then it was, they needed access to
Well, it should
McCoy
be right in
property,
here.
and so they did something.
Okay.
There's a lot of conversation going on, and it's just not gonna be reflected in the minutes. I
Okay.
can't hear it clearly.
That's
It's
fine.
gonna be really hard to.
Second.
Continue.
Motion to continue.
Second.
Everybody in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Everybody opposed?
I think it's over, right?
It's over.
I think you're absolutely right. I think what has to happen is we're giving SDC